So we're gonna play a watch your run with our guests. I'm probably not gonna focus that much on it, but it seemed like Watcher was the character who meditated and entered wrath and calm and everything. It seemed like the right character for the occasion. I think I'll start with a little silent run though as we're warming up. Thank you very much for the 9 months, Bob. You're very welcome, Samantha. And yeah, if there's absolutely no desire whatsoever for the stream to make anybody like feel like they have to be here. If this is something that you're a little bit uncomfortable talking about or thinking about, for any of the gazillion completely valid reasons that you might be, I think it's, you know if you need to be sitting this one out, and I trust you to make that decision. Oh my gosh, the guests are here already. Oh wait, do you turn the master volume on Slay the Spire down a little bit? Probably a little bit, yeah. Yeah, that's fine, the Albion, you do you. He can cool. There will of course probably be all sorts of tech issues here.
Hello?
Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Hey, Char. So I've just gotten the stream started. I introduced your charity to everybody, Rise Above the Disorder, Jason, and I let all of my viewers know that the general idea today was that we were going to be talking about, generally the world is weird, and so everything's changing for a lot of people, sometimes in unpleasant ways. We're going to be talking about what sorts of things people might want to do to just help enrich their mental health lives. Obviously, if you have a mental illness that's causing you distress, get counseling, get the medication that you need, find a solution for that. But even for somebody who doesn't feel distress from mental illness every day right now, there's all sorts of weird stuff going on in the world. And so I thought a list of ideas, like meditate, set some new goals, stuff like that would be really useful for people.
Yeah.
I can hear Jason loud and clear. Char, are you okay?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Jason, would you like to introduce yourself briefly, and then I'll get Char to introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Do you want us on video or how?
Yeah, if you want to share a video on the Discord, I can capture your face and steal it and put it on my stream. Completely up to you.
Oh, put on the wrong camera. 1 second. Let's see.
How's the weekend going?
There we go. It's going good. Yeah, very cool.
Sweet.
We just we did a bunch of live streaming yesterday, and it was kind of like our first time really getting into live streaming, and it actually went super well. I was quite surprised.
Were you doing stuff like this?
Yeah. So we tried Mixer, and we wanted to see what that would be like, and stream on there I think was 1,600 viewers. It was really bizarre. I wasn't expecting any of that, but we were talking about content creator mental health with one of their content creators, and really exploring what it's like and what our experience has been like treating a lot of content creators. So
Awesome.
pretty
I have
cool.
you on the stream. So this is Jason,
Oh, cool.
the CEO of Rise Above the Disorder. You can tell your story better than I can, and it's an incredible one. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Jason Dalton. I founded this nonprofit, Rise Above the Disorder. I guess as far as the story goes, I've been doing this for about 7 years now. We started as this World of Warcraft guild called Anxiety Gaming, and we kind of just started this. Due to my own struggles with mental health issues. I was I was in med school for a while, and I was an EMT, and at some point I think a lot of the stress just really got to me, and I had this really bad panic attack, and I noticed that every time I went to school, um, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was like hyperventilating, um, and um, it just like really blew my mind. Every time I would go, it would just happen again and again, and so I thought I would take like a small break from school, and it was like a day or two, and then it was like a week, and then it was a month, and then I took the year off. And I noticed the same thing would happen whenever I went to work. So eventually, it kind of clicked in my head. Every time I leave home, I feel like I'm gonna die, and so I stopped leaving home and developed what you call agoraphobia. Um, I think maybe like a year into not leaving home, I had kind of made up my mind of, I don't think I'm going to keep doing this anymore. I think I'm going to take my life. Um, but I had this thought process in my head, this really weird justification of, if I do that, though, I'll just be taking away from the world. I've got to find some way to like balance it out. Um, and so I thought, well, maybe if I could stop one other person from taking their life, it would somehow justify me taking my own. Um, so that's what I set out to do. And at the time, all I did was play World of Warcraft all day. So I figured, well, if I, just talk about this at the end of every dungeon I run, at the end of every battleground or every pug, like, if I just offer to talk with somebody who's not feeling well, maybe it'll happen. And I did that for a couple of months actually, and finally, we got, I guess, what would be like the first patient, and he and I would talk, upwards of 12 hours a day. We just go back and forth all the time, and um, when he was busy, like when he was like asleep or we weren't talking, I pretty much stopped playing video games, and I would just study on how to help him. Like I just read different books and explore different ways to help. And over time, um, I just started picking up on what to do. So we eventually clicked on CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, and we started to notice a really good progress. He started to feel a lot better. He started to wake up on time. He started to go to sleep and sleep well. And we were doing really well. And it went from talking all day every day to maybe just talking a couple of hours a day to maybe talking every other day. And then at one point he kind of disappeared for a week or so, and I was kind of worried. And he just like had fallen off. And so um, when he comes back like a week later, he's just like, hey, I went to Vegas and I met this really incredible woman, and like I'm just feeling so much better. And it was really cool to watch him start to feel well again. And he was telling me he wasn't feeling suicidal, and he hadn't thought about it this whole time. And felt like I did the thing. Like I did what I had set out to do, and that was cool. But it's kind of this bittersweet reality, right? Of like, I was able to help him feel better, but my whole goal was to do that and then to, not be here anymore. And so, that's kind of where I had went to. And so once he was better, I kind of planned my last day, and that was to just play World of Warcraft, one more time. And so I went to play World of Warcraft, and when I logged back on, I saw that I had a ton of in-game mail from people who wanted to talk and wanted to take me up on this offer, and so I was like, oh wow, like I guess I can't really go through with this. I've got more people to help, and so I pretty much commit to doing exactly that, to helping more and more people. And what ended up happening is we created a World of Warcraft guild, and all these people that needed help and wanted to talk would join, and we would sit and talk about mental health issues. We all struggled with these things, and it was a little chaotic at times, but we were there for each other and we supported each other. And over time, so many people joined that we had kind of figured out, like, look, we can't talk to everybody, but also like maybe homebrewed therapy is also not the right way to go. So maybe we should do something different. And so people would join, and they would send like the guild officers their zip code, and we would find them a therapist local to wherever they were. And initially that worked really well. We'd just be like, I don't know, this therapist looks cool, you should talk with them. And people would be like, oh, okay. Like, nobody knew any better at the time. So, sometimes it would work. And then eventually more and more people came back, and they were just like, hey, I really wanted to see like a female therapist instead, or like I really need somebody that specializes in this kind of anxiety. Like, what should I do? And we had figured out pretty quickly, like, oh, okay, so we can't just like randomly find people a therapist. Like, we have to actually like look into the therapist and do more research. And so that's what we started to do. People would fill out a more detailed application when they joined the guild, and we would find them a therapist that made a lot more sense, and they would just hang out in the guild and see this therapist, and we'd all kind of look after each other. But then kind of came the next era of issues that now that we were finding people these really great therapists to see, we had kind of hit this harsh reality that most people couldn't afford to see those therapists. They would come back and they would say, like, yeah, I don't have the right insurance, or this therapist is $100 an hour, and I have to see them every week for like the next few months or years. And it just was like, yeah, it's a non-starter. Like, you can't really do anything with that. So we figured, well, what can we do? How do we help people see therapists that don't have money? And we were like, well, we clicked on this idea of like, well, let's boost people in World of Warcraft. And
let's boost people in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, we floated the idea around. And we're like, well, let's just
to make
try
money.
It. Yeah. Oh. We're like, we're all pretty good at World of Warcraft. So what if we, people who would otherwise go to a website and pay somebody to level their character, or pay somebody to gear up their character, or pay somebody to get them a higher rank. So we were just like, yeah, let's be that. And with all of the money that we make, we will use that to cover the cost of mental health care for the people in our program that can't afford it. And I mean, it works ridiculously well. People would join, and they would fill out these applications, and inevitably would find out they couldn't afford the help, and so we would set out and do more boosts and use that money. And it was just great. And at some point, we had migrated to League of Legends as well. We're kind of shut-ins at this time, so we're excellent at video games and have unlimited time. So we're boosting people in League of Legends to diamond. And over like a period of time, we had this broadcaster reach out to us, this guy Trick2G, and he had noticed what we were doing, and he said, hey, like, I want to be able to do a fundraiser for you, and also there's this band that knows what you're doing, and they want to do a fundraiser for you, so like we want to team up and help you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, like what's the band? And he was like, it's Imagine Dragons. I was like, wait, what? Like, like the Imagine Dragons, like that huge international band? And they're just like, yeah.
Cool.
And so the only thing to it was, if they were going to do a fundraiser for us, you have to be a nonprofit. Like, you can't just be a World of Warcraft guild. And we are like, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess we'll be a World of Warcraft. I mean, we'll be a nonprofit and not just a World of Warcraft guild. So we applied for our nonprofit status, and the second it came in, Trick2G and some of the top people playing League of Legends at the time, I think it was like Nightblue, Dyrus, Wild Turtle, and a couple of others, did this huge charity event with Imagine Dragons and brought in a ridiculous amount of money to us. And I mean, when it happened, we didn't really know what to do. We were just like, oh, all right. So we created a website, and we had an application, and people from all over the world were filling this out, and we would find them a therapist, and then we would pay the therapist on their behalf. And I mean, we went through $500,000 in funding in
Oh my gosh.
just a few months.
What year was this?
This, I think 2014, 2015, something like that. It's like the height of Imagine Dragons. It like really kicked off, and so we just spent all of this money as quickly as we could. People would apply from so many different countries, and the only thing stopping them from getting better was they couldn't afford to get professional help. And we were just like, yeah, that's unacceptable. Here's money to get better. And yeah, I mean, we just blew through the money, and paid for thousands upon thousands of people's mental health care. And once we had run out of the money, we were just like, cool, like we did the thing, which is great. So let's go back to playing World of Warcraft. And I mean, that was it. We never intended to be a nonprofit. We just wanted to help. And so slowly we kind of shut down the application, and occasionally we'd get emails from people, and they'd say, hey, like, are you still doing any of this funding? Are you still accepting? Like, no, like we're retiring the nonprofit. We even let the paperwork retire. Like, we never filed any of this stuff anymore. So eventually it just got suspended, and that just seemed like the way to go. And that was until we got this particular email that really kind of changed everything for us. There was this 19-year-old in rural Georgia, this state here in the U.S., and he lived in a town with like 100-something people, and he had reached out, and he had sent us this email and told us this story. So he lived with his grandparents and his parents in this family home that they had owned for a long time. And one day the grandparents and the parents decided to go out to dinner, and on the drive out, their car got hit, and all four of them died. And he had said, not only had all four of them passed away in this accident, but over time, when the bank realized nobody could pay the mortgage, they pushed to foreclose. And so he was homeless. And he was writing this email to us from a library computer after having Googled, mental health and video games, the two things that were important to him at the time, and found us. And he writes in this email, and he says, he shares this story. He shares that he's homeless, and he says, look, I want to die. What do I do? And we're just like, well, like, okay, well, we can't just sit back. Like, we got to do the thing that we do, right? Like, we have to find him somebody to see, and then we have to cover the cost. That's what we do. So,
and you're back,
yeah, and we're back. So we get everybody back together. But the first problem we run into is we realize, like, look, we can't boost anymore because we're still technically a nonprofit, so we could get sued by Riot or Activision Blizzard. So we put together a bunch of our disability checks that we're receiving, since we're all kind of shut-ins at the time. And in the first week we managed to raise like $285, and we're raising this money to put him into an inpatient center that we found for him. Unfortunately, there were no therapists within this little small city that he was in. Instead, in Atlanta, about an hour away from him, there was this really incredible facility that he could not only live in, but he could get full access to treatment. They would feed him. Like
Sure.
it was the perfect fit, but it was $10,000. And we just, like, I called this place every single day and tried to haggle with them the price. First, I asked them if they could do 100, and they were just like, "No, like, don't call us." And over the course of a few days, I kept suggesting different prices, and eventually, I asked if they would accept 1,000 and an introduction to Imagine Dragons, and they're like, "Sure, just don't call us anymore."
God.
They're like, if you stop calling, we'll see this dude. So that's what we had agreed on, and of course, in that first week, $285, like we're off on our goal. In the second week, we start asking family and friends to fundraise, and we managed to get to about $600. So we're super close. And then, unfortunately, in the third week, we get a phone call from one of his friends letting us know that he had taken his life. And we were close to the goal, but just the sheer amount of pain that this kid was feeling was too much. And so a bunch of the guild just kind of quit right then and there. I mean, it was literally all fun and games until somebody died, and and the rest of the guild, we didn't really know what to do. Myself and a lot of the others were really struggling with depression, and like, this whole goal was to help people, and we had, like, just utterly failed this person. And over time, that kind of depression faded away, and then there was just anger. I think there was this reality that we live in a world where this person who did absolutely nothing to deserve any of the bad things that had happened in their life was left to die because they didn't have $1,000 for mental health care. Only in America could that actually happen. And so we were just mad. So the rest of us kind of sat down. We were like, look, let's do this nonprofit thing. Let's try and help people. And let's make sure that this never happens again, that nobody is left to die because they can't afford the mental health care that they deserve. And the rest is kind of history. We went from, being this World of Warcraft guild to being a nonprofit, and we decided not to sound like an esports team, as anxiety gaming was often confused for, and eventually became Rise Above the Disorder. And
Sure.
Since then, we've helped about 35,000 people get free mental health care by covering the costs, and it's just been a wild ride. I mean, we're partnered with really bizarre and amazing partners like Verizon and like Subaru. We now do work with Sony Music and Columbia Records to continuously fight back against this idea that health and happiness and hope should be barred from people who don't have the money to afford it. So that's kind of our story, and that's what we do.
Yeah,
I know that was kind of a long
incredible.
intro.
No, it's an incredible journey from a World of Warcraft guild to where you are today. Char, I introduced you. I don't know. I introduced you as, among other things, my yoga instructor, which I appreciated very much. Thank you. But you're also an incredible writer for video games, and your general approach to mindfulness and creativity, and even like writing the story of your life, a poem that you shared on Twitter about being stuck on the side of the road and deciding you were going to keep going along the road, stuck with me really well. Do you you can introduce yourself better than me, though. Can you sort of share some things about, I don't know, the world? Oh no, you're cutting out though. Is it... Sometimes Discord gets really weird with microphones. You might need to unplug, replug, or maybe even leave the call and rejoin. Oh no. the joys the joys of tech problems. We can also try Zoom call. I'll give you like a minute or two to try to fix stuff. And still a robot. For me, when that happens, I have to unplug, replug my microphone, and it fixes it, I think. Or leave the call and rejoin.
Well, hello.
Oh, you're in different places now.
No.
Yeah, you're fine now.
Oh, good.
Sometimes
Okay.
Discord's just weird.
Is hear me?
Oh no. Oh no, it's chopping up again. Okay. I'm going to make a Zoom call for us, and we're going to try a Zoom call. So let me try that. Thank you very much. Oh, I need to refresh this page and thank everybody who's donated so far. But I'll get the Zoom call up first. It sounds a little bit like there's not enough upload bandwidth, but sometimes it's just like Discord being weird. Sometimes it's nothing to do with the connection. Jason, if there was one thing you could suggest to somebody for their mental health that they might not be doing right now, that like maybe wasn't on their radar, what would it be?
Ooh, scheduling. Yeah, I've been talking about this for like the last few weeks now. It's I think one of the better little tools that people can be putting back into their life, especially right now where things are so chaotic and people are kind of going to sleep whenever, or waking up whenever. As much as I've craved the ability to do that for a long time, it's so much healthier to simply have a set time that you wake up, a set time that you go to sleep, a set time that you eat, and start to reincorporate a solid schedule into your life. It adds a little bit of control to an otherwise chaotic time that we're living in.
I made a Zoom call. What button do I press to invite you to it? I like don't know.
Sleep schedules. Sleep schedule is a bit of a nightmare for most people these days. It takes a bit to get that fixed.
Okay, I posted a link for a Zoom call in chat there.
Cool. We'll jump into it right now.
How's it going, chat?
Hello?
Hello, I hear you loud and clear.
Oh, wonderful.
HR.
Okay, can you hear me here?
Yes, and you sound perfect. Yeah, it's just
Okay,
Discord
good.
messing up somehow.
So yeah, also Martin was also watching the stream on normal internet, and now he's gone to Tether on his mobile, so it might be better now.
All right, well, it sounds perfect so far.
Okay, cool.
So you are Charlene Putney. What does it mean
That's me.
What does it mean to be that?
What does it mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. I guess. Well, yeah. My name is Shar. Am I in now? Is everyone?
Yes,
listening?
we can hear you.
Okay.
It's working perfectly.
Okay, good. So yeah, my name is Shar. I'm a games writer, yoga teacher, project manager, bunch of things. I guess most people who know my games writing would know me from Divinity Original Sin 2. Well, nobody's played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but I worked on that for 2 years as well. Before I worked as a games writer, I used to work at Google for a bunch of years as a project manager, and at Facebook for another bunch of years as a product manager. Both times I ended up leaving with basically having like kind of nervous breakdowns from stress and complete overwhelm. So I have been doing yoga for a lot of time since then. And yeah, I guess I'm here to have some ideas that people might be able to use around yoga, meditation, writing, all of the different kinds of different parts of therapeutic activities that have helped me in my life.
If you were going to suggest something that someone could be doing for their mental health right now that they maybe wouldn't think of on their own, what would it be?
Well, I guess a lot of people probably would think of it on their own, except I think a small yoga morning practice is probably the best thing that I would suggest for everyone. And I know that like a lot of people who are in really bad circumstances and having really hard times, like get really, really tired of people suggesting, why not try some yoga? But it's not a thing of suggesting it as a do this instead of anything else, but this is something that has absolutely demonstrably helped me in my life. And if I can, like Jason was talking about earlier, it's like if I can help somebody else to get that, then that's amazing for me. I get such a great kick every week when I lead my yoga classes and see like game developers all over the world just like having a moment to relax and actually just be in their bodies, because we spend so much time, especially now that we're here in the coronavirus times, we spend so much of our time like in our heads, on our screens, just buzzing around in the mental world, and actually just taking some time to like decant the self back into the body, onto the earth, and feel your feelings and yourself and like who you are and what you want outside of everything the world tells you are and should want is pretty powerful for me. And that's yoga gets me to do that. And I actually have a few, like I can, if anyone's interested at any point, if you want to send me an email at charlene.putney@gmail.com or send me a DM over Twitter, I'm at AlphaShar. I have like a little set thing that I can send people if they want to get started with like some basic poses.
Yes, and I'm started on it.
Stuff like that. So if anyone's interested, happy to send that on to them.
Char, can we do sitting yoga or something? Can we do like 5 minutes in our minds, in our bodies?
Yeah. So I think I guess the easiest thing, well, it's not easy. This stuff is never easy because it's always you have to get past yourself to do it. But a thing we can do at the moment is maybe just 5 minutes of a breathing meditation, if people are interested in that.
I'm gonna turn the game all the way off, or the game sound all the way off. We just lost our silent run. I'm sort of focusing on Slay the Spire as we have this conversation. Our silent run's over. It's time to renew ourselves with a watcher run now. It will be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, if you want to try a little bit of breathing, the first thing I'd say to do is to put your feet on the floor. I don't know if you're like me, I often sit with my feet all up high and curl up into little balls, everything like that. But the first thing is like put the feet on the floor, put your hands on your lap, and maybe if you're comfortable, close your eyes. I'll close my eyes so you don't imagine that there's somebody creepily staring at you through the internet. And just feel, first of all, feel your feet on the floor. And just scan your body for any places that you might be holding tension. And you might think, I'm not holding any tension. But just have a little feel. Maybe check that your jaw isn't clenched and your eyelids aren't squeezing, and that your tongue is kind of loose in your mouth, and that your shoulders aren't up around your ears. Just let them fall back. and that you're not gripping your thighs or your hands or your toes. And just let your breathing be natural. So one of the things that we think about in meditation, well, we try not to think too much, but we have this idea that all the thoughts that come into our minds, like there's no point in sitting to try and do meditation and say, don't think. You know, we're all thinking all the time, and our brains are just constantly sending thoughts in front of us. So instead, we try to adopt, it's actually in meditation, there's this idea of the watcher. And it is the one who watches. So you pull yourself back in your mind where you can see all these little thoughts like a little buffet. Imagine all your worries and your fears and things that you worry about are just this little buffet. But instead of them all coalescing around your head and pressing in and pressing up on your shoulders, you kind of swim up above them, rise above them, and look down on them. You can pick them up and have a look and put them back down again. But you don't need to be attached to any of them because you're bigger than all of that. And so it's that person that we want to access in this moment, this watcher person inside us. And so we do that by just breathing. And when thoughts arise, we just look at them, oh, that's interesting, and let it pass. Well, or that's not interesting, more likely, and let it pass. So to do that, we're going to do some counting breathing. So this will just be like really, this will be between 2 and 3 minutes. So don't worry, time passes fast. And if you want to come along for the ride, feet on the ground, hands on the lap, eyes closed, and breathe in for a count of 4. So like breathing in, 2, 3, 4. And then breathing out for a count of 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. And the idea is to have nice deep breaths. So count in your own time. Breathe in, nice deep breath for a count of 4. And then breathing out for a matching nice deep breath, 4. And don't worry about the to-do list. And don't worry about that buffet of worries. They're all beneath you. They can't touch you right now. You're in the right place, the right time, doing the right thing. Just breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 4. And just think for a moment how amazing it is that all of us here, all over the world, doing the same thing, same time, together. So one more thing. When you're breathing in, when you're next breathing in for 4, I want you to just imagine that you're breathing into your heart. Just imagine it. Just picture your heart there. And feel that you're breathing this wide expansiveness in there. And as you're breathing out for 4, I want you to imagine that you're breathing out through every pore in your body. It's like all of your skin, through every part of you, is breathing out. So in for 4, into the heart, and out for 4, out through the whole body. Feet on the floor, shoulders relaxed, jaw relaxed, eyes relaxed, into the heart, from the whole body. And now just let your breathing come back to its normal form. And maybe just blink your eyes open. And we're back. And maybe you feel a little bit more in your body, maybe a little bit more relaxed. maybe it's something you'd like to do a bit more of. And if it is, fantastic, because it's very easy to do. We can do it every day. We can start our days like this.
Thank you. That was the wonderful thing for me about meditation and breathing is like I do that first scan for tension, and then like I feel like I've released it all, and then a minute later, like something huge, just like, and that's all
Yeah.
gone too. My shoulders there, yeah.
From the clinical side of things, this kind of body scanning technique is very common to combat anxiety. So you might, for example, be having some like a panic attack where you really feel like you can't breathe, that something must be wrong, and we try and get people to do this grounding technique to plant their feet on the floor exactly like that, to check in with the body and see where things are, where there's any kind of tension. And as you're doing that breathing, we might switch it up a little bit where the exhale is instead 8 seconds, and you kind of purse your lips like you're breathing out through a straw. And that long exhale for 8 seconds is really going to help to slow the heart down and really help to slow down the pumping of that adrenaline throughout the body, and to really pull back a lot of that anxiety and tension that is building up. Um, Meditation and the power of meditation is just incredible. The difference of doing this kind of mindfulness every day is, I mean, it's just kind of life changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think like it's one of the things I'm most passionate about at the moment is the doing this morning practice every day, like where I do a little bit of writing, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of breathing. And I can tell the difference hugely, like in my creativity, in my mood, in my general demeanor, whether I did it that morning or not. It's a massive difference. Another great one for people, especially people who have anxiety. So I'm a pretty anxious person a lot of the time. Actually, I'm pretty highly strung, and one of the poses from yoga that's really helpful that you can check out, like Yoga Journal has loads and loads of pictures of all the poses, but forward bends, especially seated forward bends, like sitting with your full legs on the ground, and then you're straight back and just rising up your arms and like stretching out over your legs, and actually just being in that position for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. We actually used to do this with Larry, and we were working on Original Sin 2. We were really stressed coming up to launch, and myself and a bunch of the other writers would just go and sit down in our break room and do this forward bends, and it was always just this like, okay, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna be okay.
Oh, I love that. It's so wonderful that mindfulness is starting to pick up and really grow. It's really such a missing piece that we've needed for so long within our mental health. Unbelievably wholesome. Have you ever read the Untethered Soul by chance?
It's amazing that you mention it, because I have, and I was actually rereading it yesterday.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I was rereading the first chapter again yesterday and remembering I have to read this whole book again. It's so good. It's
so incredible.
For the unenlightened like me, what's the Untethered Soul all about?
I mean, it's an interesting dive into mindfulness at this core principle of being present. We happen to do this, and they use this example in the book of, when we see something beautiful, like we say in our mind, like, wow, that's beautiful. But to some degree, that's kind of redundant and unnecessary. We are already experiencing when something is beautiful, and there's almost this kind of unfortunate nature that we don't just allow ourselves to experience and live in that present moment. There's this concept called the beginner's mind that's really critical to mindfulness, and it's this notion that we could potentially be so present in the moment that every experience we have is as if we're having it for the first time. Most of the ways that humans work, because we're fairly mechanical, is we have a reaction to something based on past experiences and a series of past experiences. So we almost have an expectation towards everything. We know how something is going to be. You might say, well, I really don't want to go to that park. Like I went to that park once before and it was quite boring. But I mean, that's based on a previous experience. Imagine if you could do things and not really base it off a previous experience, but each time it seemingly be a unique, isolated experience. And the book tends to cover a couple of those kinds of topics in a very elegant way.
That's really cool. That's a thing in gaming too. In playing a game like Slay the Spire, which we're playing right now, being able to keep your mind open to things and not assume that something has to be a certain way, not assume that the situation you're in is exactly like a situation that you've been in before, but treat every single decision that you make in the game as a new thing with a new answer, which is what it is in a game like this. And what it is in life as well. Like that park's not going to be the same today as it was yesterday. You're different, the park's different, the weather's different. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if people follow Jessica Dorr on Twitter. She's a therapist who does a lot of kind of psychological exploration through tarot cards. She's really wonderful, and she had this explanation of the Fool card, which sounds like what you're saying there, which is like no man walks through the same river twice. He's not the same man, and it's not the same river.
Right.
Like I love that idea, because you can get into this feeling of like, well, you know, last time I quit my job, I was a disaster or something like that. And it's like, well, you know, yeah, and now you learned, and now you're not the same person, and this is not the same situation. So if you constantly have that exactly big, like you have the beginner mind, but also the experience behind you. I don't know if that makes sense. But...
Yeah. I want to catch up on some viewer interaction and also donations. I want to, while I read donations, Svitkona mentioned that doing the sort of mindfulness exercise that we did is very difficult for them because focusing inwards, like, and this is not the first person in my community who's expressed this, focusing inwards can like put your focus on things which are very anxiety inducing, like maybe sort of dangerous. So I'd love to hear your suggestions on how someone who struggles with, like, I wanted to try meditation but it brought on a panic attack, something like that, how someone who struggles with that might go about resolving that issue or finding a different path to some happier solution. But while you're thinking about that, we have some donations to catch up on. Thank you. We've raised $1,400 for Rise Above These Disorders so far today, which is incredible. Yeah.
It costs us roughly about $30 to provide a week's worth of therapy too. So that's actually that's somebody's like recovery that's just already taken care of. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And yeah, like I saw somebody in the chat there saying, like, when in doubt, go see a therapist. And I would completely agree with that exact thing, because if you are a person who you try to meditate and it brings up all kinds of stressful stuff, and yoga does the same, like maybe you do need somebody to help you to get through these things. There's small tricks that you can try, but if they don't work, then I would definitely try to see a professional to help you get through them. But like the thing I was saying in the breathing meditation about, like, you know, I have this feeling, but I am not this feeling. I am this bigger creature. The feeling is inside me. I am always bigger than the feeling. That kind of thing sometimes helped me when I was trying to deal with very difficult thoughts and feelings. Another small trick you can use is having your hand on your heart. So like actually like placing your hand on your heart and just like patting yourself really, really gently, or just rubbing your heart really, really gently.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that's a like sort of calming stress response that I have that I actually catch myself doing on stream. I picked it up from a friend who does it very deliberately, and I just started emulating him. And it's just like relaxing. Like sometimes when I'm streaming, I'll be Yeah, like chilling out, needing to tone it down a touch because the job can be a little bit stressful, and just put my hand on my heart.
Mhm.
I do want to get people's names right. Unfortunately, I can't see messages that were sent with these donations. And thank you, Quartertron, for the $1,000 donation just now
Jeez.
as well.
Wowie.
Thank you, Sparky, for the $25. Wonder Tunders, thanks for the $25. Strict9, thanks for the $25. Squeaks, thanks for the $5. Anonymous, thanks for the $5. Lee Murray, thanks for the $100. Constantine, thanks for the 25. Me donated $50. I'm not sure which me, but maybe it was all of us. And Juan Swanson, thanks for the $100 donation. Unfortunately, I can't see the messages that are coming in with these donations because I refreshed the page and now I can't see them. So if you're sharing messages, feel free to share them in chat as well. Every $1,000 that we raise today, we do like milestones in streaming for charity, where if the community raises a certain amount, we like give a reward for that support. And today I'm just saying thank you for every $1,000 that we raise. So thank you. It's sort of the amount of things that I have to be grateful for as a streamer with this community that I've built. And the platform that it gives me to try to improve the world and to bring other people on to talk about things that will hopefully improve the world is incredible. I wake up every morning excited. I have this problem where I used to have a problem waking up in the morning in my like early 20s and mid 20s. I had this terrible problem where I woke up and I was just like, there's nothing I want to do today. I'm going to stay in bed and go back to sleep. And they were not a beautiful time in my life, I wouldn't say. Maybe their beauty was hard to appreciate if they were a beautiful time in my life at all. And now I have the opposite problem. Now I wake up and jump out of the bed straight away, and now I don't go to sleep at night because there's more stuff I want to do. So thank you for making my life that, everybody. Thank you, Tuba Lord, for the $25. Thank you, Nodded, for the $5. Any small donation counts, and if you can't donate right now, that's perfectly fine too. Being here, like, this is the sort of thing that I'm hoping will help you out in the audience maybe as well. So you don't have to be the helper. You can definitely be the helped today if that's what you need. And do thanks for the 2 months. I'll show to you as well. All right, so meditation. Jason, I asked you briefly what suggestion you would have for people, and you suggested scheduling, which I thought was a really good example. Do you want to get into that a little bit more?
Sure. Sometimes in life we battle with control, and meditation is very powerful because it helps us to relinquish some of that control. But it can also, really stimulate a healthy level of control when we realize that we do have some level of control over our breathing. And there's a lot of interesting paradoxes in meditation. Like there's technically no goal to meditation, but also the goal in meditation is to relax. So things like that always are funny to me. But with scheduling, I think right now we've become untethered a bit. We've kind of desynced from a certain level of normalcy. I think for most people, their sleep schedule is completely shot. Their eating is probably shot, and everything is just kind of scuffed right now. And they're trying to find a way to put pieces back together and slowly have things not be so desynced. And scheduling helps to do that. To some degree, disciplined is a mastery over life, and if we can find ways to slowly build up that discipline, it's going to help us in a lot of different things. When stress is really getting to us and we're feeling overwhelmed, well, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, but in 10 minutes I really need to make dinner because that's what's on the schedule. That kind of scheduling really adds to a sense of feeling tethered again and feeling connected. So basic things like scheduling when you wake up and when you go to sleep can be helpful. Scheduling when you eat or when you meditate can be helpful. Making sure, especially as some of us are working from home right now, scheduling when you work and when you don't work can be incredibly helpful.
Good idea. Yeah.
That's the kind of scheduling that comes to mind, and the people that are taking on that level of scheduling are seeing a much more relief from the otherwise sense of anxiety that chaos can sometimes bring with it.
So when I wanted to start as a streamer, I had a friend who I used to employ as a poker coach, and we eventually developed into friends from that interaction. And both of us had left poker for slightly different reasons, and I had moved on to be someone who was interested vaguely in games and wanted to do something with it. And he had quite intentionally, much more deliberately, become a productivity coach. And he sat me down for 6 hours in 1 hour sessions every other week. And he tried to work with me to build my ideal day. And if I don't get my ideal day, what's my second best day look like? If my morning is just completely derailed, what does my afternoon look like to get me back on track, sort of thing? And that was incredibly, incredibly helpful for me. We made spreadsheets where I was tracking what I was doing over the course of the day. Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I energetic? What times of day do I have energy to do things? If you're a strategy gamer and you're not scheduling, or maybe you're not actively scheduling right now, but if you've never looked at what your body's like over the course of a day and tried to think about how do I use this day to the best of my ability, the idea has such an appeal to the strategy gaming mind, and has so much value as well. So I think that's something that's helped me a lot. Definitely resonates with me.
I love that perspective, the RTS approach to mindfulness and scheduling,
Yeah,
productivity.
And some mornings you have to 6-pool breakfast because you woke up late, but that's okay.
I love the StarCraft reference. Earlier you had asked the question of, what do you do if mindfulness brings about a sense of trauma or negative thoughts? And this definitely happens. You might begin working with somebody who has PTSD, and they've spent so much effort distracting and making sure that these thoughts don't spend any time in their mind, that the second that they begin to listen inward, these thoughts flood, and they become very quickly overwhelmed. It can be a really intense and sometimes itself a traumatizing experience, and so people don't want to take on mindfulness anymore. But I think one of the beautiful realities of working on mindfulness with a therapist in this regard is that the therapist's job is to kind of create an environment that has safety, and these traumatic thoughts will come. But when they do come, we find ways to work through them and find ways to desensitize to the initial reaction that we have when these thoughts come up. Mindfulness is very much a discipline. It's a practice. And in a sense, not to trivialize it, but to use maybe an example that's easier to understand. But going to the gym, when you go to the gym for the first time, your body punishes you for it. Your body's like, why would you do this to me? This really hurts. I'm very sore. And that might make you not want to go to the gym anymore. But over time, as we begin to become more comfortable with these things, as we become more capable with this skill, it gets easier and much more rewarding. And very much like with life, life is many times an uncomfortable experience. However, like with these uncomfortable experiences, being uncomfortable doesn't necessarily hurt us. It simply is uncomfortable. And as we learn to build up a tolerance to discomfort, we stop to be as phased. There's actually a really unique approach to therapy called DBT, which integrates a lot of this mindfulness practice. And so when somebody is struggling with trauma...
Sorry, was that DBT? Like D for dog?
DBT. Yeah, D as in dog.
A
B
wolf.
as in boy. T as in truck. So I think that when you work on something like DBT, it can be really beautiful because the anxiety will trigger. There will be that panic, and with the therapist, you work through that panic. And every time you successfully work through that panic, the fear of having that panic goes away. The power of those thoughts starts to go away. And as you gain more control in your discipline and your practice of mindfulness, then you get to those really gratifying levels of being able to detach from the thought completely. You see the thought, you experience the thought, but like in our breathing practice earlier, you see it from the watcher's perspective. You're outside of it, your third person perspective.
I
Someone mentioned
will.
too in the chat, isn't it reasonable to be afraid of being hurt at the gym, and how that applies here? And I think that's totally fair, which is why we have that added aspect of potentially doing this in the peer view of a therapist. So like essentially going to the gym with a personal trainer could be a very powerful approach to culling some of that fear. At the same time, I mean, this is at the heart of anxiety. Anxiety makes us uncomfortable. It makes us afraid of things based on a past experience, and having been shown how traumatizing that past experience can be. When we get to the point where we feel like we are ready to confront that, these are some of the tool sets. Therapy is never an easy process. As much as it sometimes can be talking with somebody, it is certainly a challenging process, and facing that trauma head on is part of that process.
Yeah, I had something that made me reflect on how powerful therapy had been for me in my life. Actually, was earlier this week. Let's see, on Wednesday, I recorded a podcast for the first time where I was the guest, and the podcast was about me, which is something I had never done before. It was like sort of a cool thing, and it was very sort of comparable to my therapy sessions, I found, because we were talking in depth about things that were interesting from my life, basically, which is a lot of what I find myself doing in therapy. And it was remarkable to me how the way that my therapist talks me through these things is incredibly calming and resolves them for me, and I don't feel challenged in any way. I feel comfortable and relaxed, and then when they come up again later that week, I'm able to think about them logically and dismiss them all of a sudden. And then comparing that to the podcast, where it was a podcast done by, like, in my opinion, an incredible interviewer. She found things that were interesting about me and really like focused down on them and got to the bottom of them. But that mode of conversation, we talked about the same subjects, and I did find myself, like, at times it was uncomfortable. At times after the conversation, I thought back and I was like, I wish I'd said something else there, like there was some judgment involved, sort of thing. So seeing those two different modes of conversation talking about the same thing really like solidified in my mind how big a deal what that therapist is doing is, and how much is going on. I want to catch up on donations because we've had quite a few. We are almost at $3,000 raised for the day. Thank you, everyone.
Jeez, incredible.
Thank you. Let me see. I believe we were up to Tuba Lord. Thank you so much for the $25 donation. Nodded, thanks for the $5 donation. Joe, thanks for the $36.50 donation. Forza East, thanks for the $5. And Mathophobia, thanks for the $50. Scarecrow, thanks for the $25. SBR, thanks for the $100. Niablis, thanks for the $100. Sapphire Stells, thanks for the $10. Loveless, thanks for the $100. Flame, thanks for the $20. Shinoki, thanks for the $25. I appreciate you all. I'm so glad that you are appreciating this. A lot of names of people who, like, yeah, I don't know. It's fun being a streamer. You hang out with all of these people and they're in the Discord chatting with you and stuff, and yeah, I'm just really glad. Really glad. Thank you. Okay, so we talked about scheduling. We talked about meditation. What's next? And I think we've mentioned, like, if you need it, counseling. The professional sort of, would it be fair to say that, like, counseling or therapy is like the it's how you treat a mental disease or a mental illness, whereas there are other things you can do to be mentally healthy which don't require that there was anything wrong to begin with. It's just like you want to be healthier mentally, so you do this thing.
I mean, certainly. I think when it comes to mental health issues, everything exists on a spectrum. Some people experience a higher level of anxiety, sometimes momentarily. Some people's initial level of anxiety is a bit higher. So, if we're looking at like a 0 to 10 scale, some people are just kind of casually sitting at 0, and then they go on a roller coaster and it spikes up, or some work happens and it spikes up, or other people are kind of sitting at a 4 at most times, and certainly things spike, but there's a level that exists there. One of my favorite metaphors for looking at anxiety and say anxiety attacks, for example, is imagining a cup of water, and each drop of water is a bit of stress. And for some people, they find ways that de-stress them and kind of safely remove some of this water from the cup. And for others, it kind of fills over time, and we might expect that something really terrible could happen, like maybe we go through a divorce, or maybe we struggle with something at we get fired from our job, and that drops a lot of water, and that's what causes the cup to overflow. But sometimes a life that is filled with a lot of stress, or maybe even trauma, can leave the cup already relatively full. And so simply, dropping the food that you just made, or that extra hour of traffic, can be the tiny drop that leads to overflowing. Depending where you often find yourself on that spectrum, there are various ways to approach treating your mental health. For some people, it can be almost necessary to see a counselor. People that are already very high up on this spectrum of anxiety or depression at any given time, and finding that it's really impacting their daily life on a significant level. Sometimes that can be hard to see if the normal of your life is exactly that you're often so anxious all the time that you don't even really realize that other people are not this anxious, or don't really even imagine life without being this anxious. If we can find a way to be insightful enough to see that, that's typically where we want to employ counseling. Other times, it's healthy for your mental health to fluctuate. Even when we talk with somebody professionally, my expectation is not that they will forever always be happy now, that they will never feel sadness ever again, that they are now immune to it, but rather they'll experience it on a healthy level. When something tragic happens, they feel sad, and they feel the full range of feeling sad. And that when something good happens, they feel good. And when nothing is happening, maybe they don't feel anything. All of that is relatively normal. Just like going for a walk is a great start to your physical health, and just because you want to feel better physically, you don't necessarily need to get a gym membership and start seeing a personal trainer for that. Mental health can be very much the same. But I think the beauty in that is if you care about your physical wellness, assuming you have the ability to pay for it, there's really nothing wrong with seeing a physical trainer. Much like with mental health care, assuming you have the affordability, there's nothing wrong with just seeing a therapist. Also, I think somebody just donated 50 subs.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my god.
so I always make my own donation to a charity when I do these streams. So if you would rather gift subs to the channel or cheer bits, or donate directly to like my donation link for whatever reason, maybe it's what you've done before so it's easier, or maybe you have bits lying around, I like to work out how much I've made in the stream and donate that, plus I usually round up a bit for my own contributions. So thank you, Bob, for the 50 gifted subs. That's crazy. I
Wow.
just in order to turn off my stream notifications, I have to take your videos off the screen really quick, because technology is really weird. So all right, you're back. Thank you for that. I'm just gonna mute the notifications so they're not going crazy. Gosh, this is a this is a very enjoyable talk for me. Thanks for the 500 bits as well, Januki. Go ahead, Char. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add to the talk about therapy is that, like, I think one of the kind of stigmas people have out there in the world is that you only go to therapy if you're in a really bad way, or you know, people get this feeling that I don't deserve to go to therapy, or I haven't earned the right to go to therapy by suffering enough, or you know, I'm fine really. I'm just a little bit stressed or anything like that. And honestly, I think every single person on this planet, like if everybody on this planet went to therapy once a week, like, and could afford it, we'd all be in a much better place. It's like I don't go to therapy anymore because I live in Denmark now. It's very expensive here. But when I went to the same therapist every week for 5 years back when I lived in Ireland, and I had just had such an amazing experience from that. Like, I learned so much about myself, and when I started going, I would have said, I'm just curious. I'm just going to see what this is about, if I can learn some interesting things about myself. And oh boy, did I learn some interesting things about myself over the course of those 5 years, and gained an awful lot of like tips and tricks that were specific to me, from talking to somebody who understood me personally, and who never, no matter what I would say, they've heard so much. They know everything. They've heard it all from other people before. You won't be able to scare them or shock them, or like, you don't need to be afraid of going to a therapist. You're probably going to feel, it's going to open stuff up. It's going to make you have to think about yourself. It's going to probably make you change the way you live your life a bit, but all in a good way. Like, it's a path to a better life. So yeah. I would just wanted to add that, because I wouldn't want people to think that they only go to therapy when they're in a really bad way.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. Yeah, it's I think I very much agree with this idea that if everybody went to therapy, this world would be a significantly better place, a significantly different place.
The general idea that someone has spent their like, how many years does it take to become a therapist? Like, more than 5, we'll say. And then on top of that, has likely been practicing as a therapist for a long time. They've spent all of this time learning about how brains work, how brains get stuck, how to improve your happiness and your mentality. And then you go and you hang out with them, and they give you hours and hours and hours of their time, and they learn all about you and learn all of the unique things that you have, and put that through an external lens which is trained and knowledgeable. And then they make recommendations and help,
personalized wisdom.
It's incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. It's hard to imagine. There's some stigma around going to a therapist. I don't know if this is specific to US culture or specific to subsections of US culture, or a thing that shows up generally around the world, but there's definitely stigma associated with saying, hey, I could use some mental help right now. And it's so silly. Like, there's no stigma associated with consulting an expert about how to be better at something, or just about anything else, I feel like. But for mental health, there is a bit of that.
You know, one of the things that has always interested me since we started doing this is, you know, we help people from all over the world. And so we see a lot of different cultural takes on mental health issues and the stigma surrounding it. And although it's certainly not exclusive to the United States, there are a lot of places that have problems with the idea of seeing a therapist. One of the more interesting things that I've seen is throughout Mexico, it's actually considered a luxury. It's kind of a bit of what people call flex these days, because it's something that only really wealthy people can afford to do. And so, you know, for somebody to talk about them being in therapy, it's kind of saying like, yeah, I have, you know, I'm pretty wealthy, I'm pretty successful, I get to work out my stress with a professional. And it always really blew my mind that is kind of the mindset there, and you know, certainly in other places, you know, the complete opposite of, you know, I would never talk with somebody about these things. It's very curious to me. Yeah, and as Matthew says that in chat, it's I think that's an unfortunate reality in why we exist is a good portion of people can't afford to see a therapist. The idea of getting professional help is something that is, um, I mean, it's a luxury. It is a luxury to be able to talk with somebody about your feelings. It's a luxury to be able to move forward. Not everywhere in the world is that the case, but for far too many people, that is the reality.
And it's good that we're raising money so that people who, if you think about, I don't know, if you think about like therapy as a resource that is limited and costly, and you think about who needs this therapy, um, people who can afford it as a luxury maybe don't need it quite as much as people who are stuck and can't get it. So that's one of the beautiful things about this charity, and why I'm happy to be supporting it, is to get people who need therapy, the therapists. And people who don't need therapy that much, you can go to therapists too if you want, but let's make sure as a world that we're getting the people who need therapy to therapists. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really fantastic work you're doing, Jason.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're trying to have as much of an impact as we can, and I think hopefully really try to shape a future where that's not considered a luxury anymore, where it's just considered a right. I think for some people, the idea of ever getting professional help seems like an impossibility, and we see those people on a daily basis, and I mean, it's a beautiful experience to go through and to hear their stories, to hear how they've found so much strength and courage to seek professional help, and then to see that kind of reality of, but unless I can get accepted into this program, it won't matter. And it's what a bizarre dystopian reality we sometimes wake up to. And one of the things that I have been really kind of on a kick of is the idea of kind of the political landscape and the healthcare system right now in the United States, and how we're kind of quickly realizing how a for-profit system is really hurting a lot of us and keeping us from being well.
What do you think about online counseling versus IRL counseling? IRL counseling? Traditional? I don't like because you go to a therapist, they've set up their office in a very deliberate way. They have furniture, they have natural light or controlled light of some other sort. They're making sure that noises don't interfere with your session and this and that. And then you go to online counseling, like you're doing the counseling from your workspace. Maybe all of the distractions of your regular day are there to bug you. The microphone quality is bad. The webcam quality is not great. Do you, in terms of getting counseling to more people, do you have any thoughts about like best things we could be doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, telecare is, I mean, it's here. It's been around for a long time. Telehealth as an industry has just kind of rapidly grown, but especially now, it's the default. Most clinicians aren't seeing people in person anymore, for safety reasons, and especially because you sit relatively close together for those kind of intimate conversations, and so we're taking a break from that. I think prior to COVID, I was more telecare and telehealth for people who maybe were in rural areas and didn't have access to somebody within a realistic or reasonable distance, or for people that were regularly traveling within their state and maybe weren't able to be stationary for too long. I think the in-person experience is a really beautiful experience. So much of our human experience is based on these in-person social interactions, and to be able to see somebody react, to be able to feel somebody react to what we're saying, and to have that closeness when maybe you haven't felt any kind of closeness in a long time, I think is quite powerful. But we're making do with what we have for now, and I don't think telehealth is a just a massive step down. But I'm excited for when things start to clear up, the ability to go back and have that in-person experience. I think although telehealth is gearing up for this reality where a lot of people are going to remain remote because businesses have figured out that it's fine for people to work remote, that those that are vulnerable especially will need that in-person intimacy and that in-person connection. So hopefully we return to that relatively soon. I don't think people should not go to therapy though, because it's not in person. I think you should certainly go either way.
Something that came up right at the start of this call that I wanted to come back to, you were talking about building a mental health support group out of a World of Warcraft guild, and you talked about how you expanded to League of Legends, and immediately to me it was like, oh my gosh, I played League of Legends for 3 years in my mid-20s. I could have used that. And there were so many other people in my game yelling at each other who could have used it too. It made sense to me. I think that as a streamer as well, I see that a lot of people come to games as maybe a method of escape, a method of maybe interacting with an environment where things can be under their control, in a world where things can't be under their control. And I certainly think a lot about like people who are watching my stream because it's a reliable thing. It can be part of a routine that is otherwise maybe unsatisfying in some way. It can bring them some joy and some solidity and some reliability in their lives. And I thought both of you might have really interesting answers about this because Char, you write games, and
I do.
some of my favorite games very aggressively deal with concepts like grief and anxiety and sort of get up in your face about it, or concepts like having fun and relaxing as well. Maybe even better than something like Slay the Spire does. I have Grease merch on my desk, and I have it for a reason. So I was wondering what your thoughts were about gaming and how gaming contributes to positive mental health, and what a healthy relationship with gaming might look like.
Well, I have to say, I'm not sure what a healthy relationship to gaming looks like. I play Slay the Spire every day with my partner. We've played the daily run every single day since last September. and usually we do a little Ascension after that as well. So I don't know if I could be a person anyone could trust to say what is a healthy relationship to gaming.
Sounded healthy. What's unhealthy about that?
But for me, I truly enjoy this kind of game much more because I think this is the kind of game for me where I can get into the zone. So like Slay the Spire or Into the Breach, for example, it was the last game I had like this, where I just in the game, my brain is counting the numbers and moving through the motions, and I feel completely peaceful and at ease. I don't feel like that at all when I play the games that are like the ones that I write, because I know how the sausage is made, and I'm constantly criticizing and thinking, oh, that's really cool. I wish I'd done something like this, or oh, I would have done it this way instead, or something like that. But I have met a lot of people, like I give a lot of talks at different play conferences and things like that. And I've met a lot of people who said, oh, I've played 550 hours of Original Sin 2, and it's helped me through this hard time or that hard time. And I think that partly that happens to be because of the escapism, like living in this fantasy world and doing things in a different way than in reality. But also I think it is because when we wrote the characters in that game, we wrote them all from a place of like truth in our hearts. So the kind of feeling that even if it's a little rat in a strange tunnel, that rat is expressing some actual true emotion that we felt on the bus that way, on the way to work that morning, or it's a health scare that one of our family members had, or it's like a heartbreak that we experienced. And I think that when I meet people who have had a very calming experience with our game, it's usually from that type of situation. where they saw something that felt real and that made them feel seen. And when you feel seen, you feel safe.
That's such a powerful point. You know, in all this, the experience that I've had, I regularly get asked from parents about video game addiction, and is it a problem that my child watches these streams or these YouTube channels or plays these games all the time? And I know even, as recently as a few months back, the World Health Organization had declared problematic gaming as an issue, and was very anti-gaming, and now is like very pro-gaming as a form of distraction. Games can be a beautiful way to escape. For some of us, especially a little bit older generations, where we grew up in games, were very much something that nerds or outcasts did, and you wouldn't really go and talk to people about how you play video games because they would think that you're not very cool. Games provided a community, a fringe community where you could exist and display yourself in a safer way, to be seen and feel safe. And over time, games have just grown to become increasingly more immersive and consuming, and they allow us to disappear from some of the pain that we're feeling. With World of Warcraft, it made sense that we had an entire guild of people who were stuck at home due to mental health issues. Within WoW, they could socialize, they could personify themselves in a way that wasn't how they actually felt or were in real life. And they could feel like they were doing something and being productive, because so many of these games now have a productivity module to them where, even though I'm just leveling up this profession, it feels like I'm actually getting stuff done. To some degree, it can be dangerous, and it can create problems where we find ourselves so disconnected from real life that we're not being productive or getting things done. We find ourselves so satisfied with what we can get from games that we don't really need anything elsewhere. But the times that I do see that, the people that I do see who experience that tend to struggle with pretty serious mental health issues that have made it challenging to find relief elsewhere. They need something to really take them away from the amount of pain that they're experiencing in the background. They need something that's louder than the hurt that they're experiencing, and games are pretty loud. Streaming and broadcasters, this is a platform that is built off of people wanting to be heard and wanting to be seen, and also wanting to feel like they're a part of something. Communities build around broadcasters, and to some degree almost deify them or idolize them, because they can find a way to relate and kind of connect and feel connected with others. It's a very curious thing what gaming has created over time. But it's a thing that gaming has created over time off of the needs of people and the increasing need from people to feel connected and be distracted. And so games, I think, provide that on beautiful levels, and occasionally sometimes dangerous levels, but really only dangerous for those that maybe were already very vulnerable and need help regardless.
Yeah, it's a point that I make somewhat often, but it can be tough to work in this space where games can consume me to a point where I spend 10 hours playing them overnight just because I'm enjoying them so much. But also where Twitch is set up to show me how many followers I have and how many viewers are here right now and what's your sub count. And then when I get done with work for the day, I jump on my social media platform, but for me, it's not a social media platform. For me, it's like the place where I talk about my like streamer brand or whatever, and my followers want to know when the next stream is. And so I think that for me, funnily enough, the thing that games do where you can unplug, like, I'm having to find more and more ways to unplug from games in my life at the moment. And that's something that I I'm glad that we've talked about meditation, and I'm glad that I've started yoga. And that was something that I was like thinking about preparing for this call. Is like, I wonder how much other stuff there is. There's like hobbying, like I could take up knitting or like painting
You
or
should.
something. I should take up knitting.
I
Caitlin
also
likes
knit.
knitting.
It's great.
All right, fair enough.
Very meditative.
Books, I could be reading stuff. There's always like conversations with friends and things like that. Part of my unplugging for the week is definitely like jumping on a Zoom call with my friends for a few hours.
I think there's a level of balance that's always really required in life. I think, especially growing up, there was don't play video games all day. You need to go outside. Why do you need to go outside? You just need to. Or like, substituting one habit or one hobby with another hobby or another habit that, we believe to be more productive. There was a point in history where reading books was considered a lofty and fantasy stricken life. It was the same thing of like, stop reading those books and actually go and do, something with your hands, go do something physical. And, it's easy to place that. I think one of the more valuable things that I've realized that can be helpful for understanding how to balance out your life is creating the ideal Jorbs, to essentially create this character as if you were the character in your own RPG, and define what exactly the ideal Jorbs is. And as you write that character, how does Jorbs dress? How does Jorbs looks? What does Jorbs do? What are Jorbs' favorite things to do? What makes Jorbs happy? What makes Jorbs unhappy? And as you start to kind of create that ideal character, it'll really begin to shape in the actions that you take throughout the day, the things that you start to build. That way, you don't get too lost in the sauce, as they say, of trying to figure out who you are so much as you just start to become actions and be that person.
Yeah, we have Twitch Jorbs, VOD Jorbs, Twitter Jorbs, YouTube Jorbs, Discord Jorbs, and now also Ideal Jorbs has been introduced. This is very exciting new Jorbs lore.
Somebody also said the idol Jorbs earlier when I was talking about content creators being idolized.
The idol Jorbs, sure. Well, yeah, I think that the three main retirement plans for streamers are like you go into back-end stuff, talking with sponsors and things, or you do like the Bob Ross thing where you're just very wholesome as you age and have a like very healthy community built around you, or you start a cult. And I mean, that seems like a reasonable option to me as well. Might happen.
Jorbs.
Extremely on for cult Jorbs.
I was gonna say something in response to that, but what was it? Shoot. Balance. Oh yeah, intentionality, direction, goal setting. That was something that I wanted to bring to this conversation as something that's really helped me a lot. And it relates a little bit to scheduling and it relates a little bit to mindfulness, but definitely the reason we're having this conversation right now is that back in like January or something, I sat down with myself and I was like, what do I want to do this year? And one of the things I set as a goal was every week I'm going to reach out to someone who I think would be enriching to talk to and see if they want to chat with me. And when I have free emotional energy, that's something that I'm doing right now. But that's not something that comes naturally to me. That's something that I made myself do. Because I sat down and I was like, this is my life. I'm my life's architect. I can choose to some extent what I do with my life and what do I want to do with it. And that was a thing that came up. So I think in times of COVID, a lot of routines are disrupted, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are struggling to work out what that routine is getting replaced with. What are they going to do instead of going to the bar this evening, because they're not going to the bar this evening. And having intentionality and being honest with yourself about who you are and who you want to be, and setting reasonable goals that you have control over to work toward that thing. Like, don't say I want to get a promotion at work, because maybe you don't have control about that. But say I want to spend 30 minutes every week going above and beyond at work. Maybe you get that promotion. Maybe you get a different job that's better. Maybe you get recognized and make some new friends. I don't know. That's been huge for me. Just taking the energy that I have extra and using it in a way that helps me be the ideal Jorbs, I guess, or be closer to that.
Yeah, intention, such a powerful tool that we oftentimes forget. When we wake up, one of the things that I do with this kind of morning meditation is intention setting. I from the CEO perspective, I have to use that to really guide throughout the day, and make sure that I'm effective. But this is a thing that everybody should really be doing, is setting an intention for the day. Today I'm going to laugh more. Today I'm going to smile more. Today I'm going to be more present in everything that I do, and watching as that intention kind of seeps through everything you do. The goal setting part, also quite beautiful, to be able to set goals for yourself and to be able to succeed in those goals. You see this a lot when you're treating people that are struggling with depression, is wanting to set some very easy initial goals to start to build and cultivate a feeling of achievement and a feeling of success, and watching as that scales more and more into good things and help somebody kind of pull themselves out of their depression. Intention is quite powerful.
I have to say, I don't know if anyone else is listening to this and worrying about their lack of intention and goal setting, but just in case they are, I would like to just put in my side of things, which is that I don't really live with very much intention at all, and I kind of have never done so. I've kind of flown by the seat of my pants for my whole life, through getting my degree, getting my master's, working in Google, Facebook, Larian, writing, moving here, moving there, doing things, has always kind of been the thing that seemed like the right thing at the time. And I don't know, maybe that's more living with intuition than intention. But just in case people are worried that if they don't have a goal, they won't get anywhere. Well, I don't know, maybe you don't think I got anywhere, but I'm somewhere.
You definitely got
Not
somewhere.
dead yet. So, yeah.
I think the fact that some things work for some people and other things work for other people is one of just the cool things about being human.
I think it's so great, and it's something like I always say to people in, like, when I teach writing in a lot of different university programs and teach yoga as well, and like one of the things I always say is just like, take what works, leave the rest behind. Like maybe this is for you, maybe this is for you, maybe you'll get out of the 10 things I teach you today, maybe one of them will stick and you hate the rest. That's totally fine. But yeah, it's really good, because especially if you get into any kind of writing situations, you'll see so many people and they say, this is the only way to write, and someone else will have the exact opposite advice. No, this is the only way to write. And you could get yourself totally tied up in knots trying to follow what works for other people. And sometimes maybe if you just sit quietly for a few minutes with yourself and give a few different things a try, you can be like, you know what, maybe that does work for Leo Tolstoy, but it doesn't work for me. So you can figure out your own path.
Love that. Maybe even go to therapy and work with a therapist to figure out your own path.
Yeah.
Like that the ultimate approach to it, because that is such a curious thing. It really does feel sometimes like we live backwards, where we spend so much time trying to figure out how to live, and then sometimes living.
Sure.
And how interesting it would be if we were just told exactly what we needed to do and what we wanted to do, and then we just spent the rest of our time doing it. Life is a lot of figuring things out and bumbling through things. Sometimes you set intention and try and control which way the which way you float, and other times you simply just float down the river and allow yourself to exist and be present in all of those things that happen. But I think that idea is really wonderful to kind of take what works and disregard what doesn't, because that's always going to be the case too. You ask people, what is the path to peace, and you're going to get a million different answers from people who are very, very ardent about their path being the right path. I think we've actually had some wars over that, ironically.
Yeah, I studied classics in university, and we read Plato's Republic, and it talked about all the different parts of the Republic society, and it's maybe not a great society, especially viewed through a modern lens, sure. But when Plato was writing about shoemakers, the working class people who provided products for everyone, and there were just there was someone who made shoes, and that was what they did with their life. Every day they woke up and they just got better at making shoes and made shoes for people. And then when they walked around town, everyone was wearing shoes that made. I actually that was really exciting to me. the idea of living in a world where I was just told what I was meant to do and got satisfaction out of it. That's I feel like there was a child version of me who thought that was what life was going to be like. I was going to go to school, I was going to go to university, get a degree for something, then I was going to do it and derive immense satisfaction from it and be good at it, and then I was going to retire happily with a family, and that was the train tracks of life. And oh my gosh, life is maybe some people get that, but oh my gosh, life has not been that at all.
Yeah, same. I saw a beautiful thing the other day. It was an obituary for this guy. I think his name is Randall Jacobs, and he died. He was 65, and the obituary that his nephews wrote for him was just amazing. He just was clearly a total character. He didn't have any of the things that the markers of success of a life in the modern world, but he had such an effect on all the people around him, and I just think about that all the time. It's we're here to live. We're all gonna die anyway. We gotta do the thing that we're here to do, the special thing that we're here to do. And maybe for some people that's have kids, have a house, have a pension, have a whatever. And maybe for other people it's just be here to listen, be here to inspire, be here to write, be here to make music, draw and paint, and I don't know. You can never have enough of what you don't need. So if you spend your life trying to get the thing that's not for you, you won't be happy, I think.
Do you play Slay the Spire at all, Jason, or know anything about the game?
No, I'm watching it as this is happening and trying to figure out, especially as Chad is reacting to it. But I do typically love card games. I played Hearthstone for a pretty long time.
Jason, you are missing out. This is your moment.
It looks good.
It is the best.
It's very similar to the Hearthstone single player dungeons. Oh, I think I'm dead. Oh, whoops. They do the dungeon runs, right? Where you go through it and play against different enemies who have more and more health and more unfair things. But we have lost the run, unfortunately, to the lady in the snake suit.
She gets me a lot too.
Yeah.
Now I play a lot of Teamfight Tactics.
Teamfight Tactics was tons of fun. I got really into it season 1. I haven't revisited the later seasons yet.
Yeah, I love that. And so I'll play Teamfight Tactics, Path of Exile, and I've been playing a little bit of Valorant off and on, just since that seems to be the game right now.
Yeah, a lot of Valorant hype at the moment. Do either of you have closing remarks as this run has wound down?
No.
No.
I'm silent in horror.
Silent in horror.
I just want to thank everyone for today, and thank you, Jorbs, for putting this on, and Char for sharing so much of your insight and meditation, and all the people that donated today and asked questions. This has just been such a cool experience, and I'm glad that we're all really working together to make therapy possible for people that really need it right now. And um, I mean, the only thing that was really stopping them was just not having the financial capability yet, and yet, being that key word.
Char, would you be willing to lead us out of the session, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I did want to say a thing that I didn't think about before, which was people were talking a little bit about writing in the chat a while ago. And I don't know if people know about this, but if they want to have a look for the morning pages exercise, it's a super nice way to start your day. Basically, handwriting 3 pages, like 3 A4 pages, with whatever is on your mind. And it's basically the idea that, like when we were talking about the meditation earlier, you see the thoughts, but you are above the thoughts. You're just watching them. So you just write with your pen. And even if what you're writing is, this is stupid, why am I doing this, blah, 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 eventually your pen will start to write something cool or interesting or terrible, like terrifying. But you'll get there. And if you do that every morning for a week, you'll learn an awful lot of things about yourself and what is, what really worries you, what's really going on at the surface, what is the thing about your life that you want to change. And it also helps you to put all those things to the side at the start of the day and kind of have this kind of clean slate creative mind. If you work in any kind of creative field, it is a fantastic thing to start with. So sorry, it was just one of the things I wanted to tell people about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you lead us in like giving the thanks for the conversation and the mindfulness and the centered, and you do this better than me. I don't know. So Char has this when you like followed me on Twitter and reached out to me for the first time and said like, hey, me and Martin love your stuff, and I like looked up you and Martin. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are so cool. And I started like looking into stuff you'd done, and trying to work out which games. And I watched a talk that you gave. I watched the first 5 minutes of a talk that you gave on writing, where you like led a meditation to begin with, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this meditation has made me realize I shouldn't be sitting at my computer. I should be going and doing other stuff that I need right now. So I left the talk behind, and I've revisited it like 2 times. And like after 5 minutes of the meditation, you do like seated yoga. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do like seated yoga. And then I like did the seated yoga, and I was like, oh my God, I have so much energy. I don't want to sit at my computer and watch a talk right now. And I left again. And you keep on making me bounce from that talk. But yes, you have an incredible presence and ability to like calm an audience, I think, and to like center an audience and sort of reset a mind. I don't know. I don't know what it all is, but it is truly remarkable to me. So I just, if we're gonna end the call, I think that you know the way to do that.
Okay, well, I have an idea, but it's a bit weird. But maybe it's okay to be a bit weird here in the in the stream, which is a little. It's kind of like I guess it's sort of like a meditation or a prayer or a poem or something like that I close my morning practice with every day. And I guess when I think about it, it's sort of like what Jason talks about with an intention. It's an intention for the way I want to live my life, but it's not very specific. So yeah, maybe if we just do a small breathe again and give it a go. Does that sound okay?
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, and maybe again we just get the feet on the floor, the hands on the knees, and close the eyes. And just breathing for a moment. You'll feel maybe the thoughts are crowding around the back of the head, and that's where my thoughts like to hang out, right at the top of the shoulders and the back of the head. But we're just going to swim up a little bit so that we're above them. Your feet, just press your feet gently into the ground. And just feel very gently each of these little parts of your body without moving them. Just feel them and relax them. So just your right foot, your right leg, your left foot, your left leg, your hips, your waist, your ribs, your right shoulder, right arm, right hand, left shoulder, left arm, left hand, your neck, your jaw, your eyes, your whole head, your whole body, your whole body in the chair, and your feet on the ground. Breathing in, breathing out. May you always be connected to the highest. May you think clearly. May you speak the truth. May you communicate effectively and creatively. May you feel all your feelings rooted in love. May you move from your power, your will, and your focus. May you hear, listen to, and follow your intuition. And above all, may you be grounded in this body, on these feet, on this earth. And that is all. Maybe blink your eyes open. Maybe feeling relaxed. Maybe ready for a little snooze, depending what time it is where you are. And thank you so much, everybody, for your beautiful presence today. And thank you so much for all of the amazing donations to Jason's wonderful charity. So fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Char, for joining me, and thank you for that. That was incredible. We have raised good money for a wonderful cause today. Thank you, Jason, for coming on.
Yeah.
This has been great. This is my favorite Watch Your Run ever.
Despite the sticky end.
Yeah? No, that's fine. You don't have to win in this game to have fun. I will let you both go. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for a lovely evening. Bye, everyone.
All right. Well, I'm just very chill right now, Twitch chat. Thank you, Anonymous, for the $100 donation. It was so interesting. It was incredibly interesting to me. Yeah, like so much stuff to think about and put away, sort of like, right? Like feels like I'm gonna rewatch that. I don't usually rewatch my streams. Thank you for that 300 bits, Jinoki. Thank you, Mythrauren, for the Prime. Thanks, Varelatus, for the Prime. Momentum X. Thanks very much for the 20 months. This stream is a bit weird, yeah.